An arrest has been made 13 years later. A top terrorist suspect who was involved in and part of the Benghazi coup, Benghazi attack, whatever you want to call it. And this happened, again, just overnight.
He's been charged with an 8-count indictment. It includes the crime of murder against Ambassador Chris Stevens and State Department employee Sean Smith. It also has arson charges. It has a lot of other things that are related to the planning and the execution of that attack on both the U.S. consulate, as well as, remember, a CIA outpost was also a part of that attack where we lost American lives. This is something that you, like you said, you weren't expecting to be waking up to today, but as of 3 a.m. this morning, they had landed at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland with Zubayr Al-Bakoush, who is this alleged terrorist that was in this.
Libyan militant, I'm quoted, suspected of being a mastermind of the attack.
So there were 4 Americans, remember, that were killed in this. It was CIA, as well as members of the State Department, a U.S. ambassador, and this individual is a part of that. There have been other arrests, you remember, that have gone throughout this time, and this, we're now talking 14 years plus, and that's where, back in 2014, a lot of those happened very close to the actual event itself, when we were still more engaged in the area.
We had 4 dead Americans. Was it because of a protest, or was it because of guys out for a walk one night who decided they'd go kill some Americans? What difference at this point does it make?
Everyone knew that her 2 choices there that she was presenting in that outrageous statement of what difference does it make, she was leaving out the real cause, the planned terrorist attack against American citizens, against the American government, that had nothing to do with the video.
I mean, look.
And that's what caused so much outrage then.
Hillary Clinton famously once said about Benghazi, what difference at this point does it make? Well, it makes a difference to Donald Trump. It makes a difference to those families. And 14 years later, it makes a difference to law enforcement who made the difference in this case.
I think that is kind of what is different about this administration, is that when they say never forget, and some of the things that have gone away,
look, we talked about
they are going to keep their word and do things that, if this hadn't have happened, I don't think it would have really been something that anyone ever thought back to. Man, they never really got one of those guys from Benghazi.
I feel that way about the January 6th bomber. Remember that just happened. And that was only a couple of years ago. It was 4 years ago, 5 years ago at this point. We're talking about jumping back 12.
When things that are big stories, that are national outrage over, and really that are tragedies in our country, if they are just forgotten, if they aren't still showing that the American justice system will hunt you down and bring you to justice, then you will lose faith in your justice system. And I think, while this may not be a story that it even gets a lot of long-term play out of, you're not going to see it in the news for more than probably just today. I think it is important, because as we see all the attacks on our judiciary, the history that we've seen over the past few years of the mistrust in the FBI and the Department of Justice, and how it was politicized and weaponized. Stories like this show that the people in charge now are trying to do the original mission, the goal of these institutions, and are showing that it doesn't matter how long, even if people forgot about it, there are people within these institutions that are doing the hard work and will continue to do it.
The question about who should care about Benghazi, I say every American that is overseas, tourists, State Department, contractors, everybody. Because let me tell you what Benghazi did, and prior to that, is eroded all the security, all the confidence that you have over there as an American. When I was young and I was growing up over there, my father was out helping, these third world countries. You felt absolutely secure. Nowadays, because of Benghazi, you do not feel secure. You're vulnerable. So can you imagine a tourist and you can't even count on your embassy or your country or your government, and the people no longer have respect. They just treat you poorly. So that's who should care.
Parker, I 100% agree. And really, we saw that. We saw the even in the aftermath when they were doing the investigations, that there were calls from that consulate and things saying we need more security, and those requests were turned down or ignored. And that was kind of the aftermath, is that as an American, and why it was so shocking to see an ambassador that was killed. And yes, it was in Libya. It was not as if this were in France or in Europe somewhere, right? But it's still that symbol, that status, that U.S. ambassadors could go to those countries and were safe. Yes, they had security, they had protection, but there was something behind that. There was a trust in the American government that we take care of our own, even when they are around the world. And that is what eroded there. It also made other groups feel more opportunistic, like, oh, this is something we could be doing. There was a lot of damage that happened with Benghazi, and it has taken a long time to build that back. And I'm not sure that anyone's ever really recovered from that, even if it's not on the front of everyone's mind as you travel the world, if you're just even a tourist. But it was a real effect that happened. And I think, once again, why it's so important on a Friday, a random Friday in February, that we woke up to this news is because it does remind you that things are being done differently. This isn't an FBI that is solely focused on going after parents at school board meetings or infiltrating Catholic churches here with spies. This is now a real serious law enforcement arm that is protecting the American people, and the Department of Justice is prosecuting cases like this. It should be a step back towards some sort of faith in those institutions. It's going to take a long time to fully rebuild that trust, but I think it should be something that wakes a lot of people up.
There's generational gaps here when you're talking about over 10 years. I mean, I'm not talking about kids who were born, after it and are now, 13 years old. I'm talking about people that are now in their mid-20s, late 20s. A lot of times you're not being exposed to what's going on in the news. Do you remember what you were doing when you were 15 years old and now you're 30? Were you paying attention to what was going on in the global news? Likely not. So we do have to go back and remind people. For a lot of us, it feels like it was just yesterday, but it wasn't. And the fact that you have an administration that's willing to still do this, I think it's pretty impressive. Again, it wasn't the news I expected to wake up to. It wasn't, if I had a bingo card for this year, Benghazi probably wouldn't have been a topic that I thought we'd even be bringing up in 2026. But here we are. And I think that's good. I think it's good that you keep, it also keeps people on their toes who are out there still, who were involved in things like this. So they know they haven't gotten away with these egregious crimes against America.